I know,
Well, why would
I
I
know.
judge architects?
I think because
Coffee with Coaches. Discover the power from within.
with Aisha Hassan, Jill Shillabeer, and Inyam Griggs.
we've talked in the past about coaching and what that is. We talked about who we are. We then moved into a conversation about agency and what that means. And today we want to do a little pivot off of agency and talk about how we as coaches were instrumental in bringing that to our clients, helping them to enact that agency. And we're going to talk about what it means to serve a client as a coach.
Yeah, thanks, Anya.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think something that comes up for me a lot is that agency can show up differently for different people, right?
Mm.
And so there's really no one size fits all way of approaching coaching and approaching coaching in from a lens of activating folks' agency. Um, One thing that I do think of is that our role as coaches are less about someone directing someone somewhere and more about helping remove barriers for the client to be able to regain or access their agency. We're not giving anything to anybody. We're
Mm.
kind of clearing the way for our clients to really step into what is already theirs.
I love how you said that, Aisha, because I think that there's that notion that the coach is gonna somehow solve the problem, right? People will come to coaching and say, "Help me get there." And it's not that we don't, and it's not that we're not part of that. It's just that we're not the one coming up with that idea, with that solution, right? And serving the client um, is holding back what can often be a huge desire to do that because, like, oh, I've lived through that. I've experienced
Mm.
that. I know what to do, right? Um, but that's never really truly in service of the client because we don't live in their head. We don't live in their life. We don't have their relationships. There's so much to that. So that idea of removing barriers or, you know, sometimes I think about it as like lifting the lid on a box and saying, "Okay, what's in this
Mm.
box?" Like, let's just lift the lid. You tell me what's in the box. What do you see there? Um, and let's dig around and let's see what we can find that might bring some of that agency into play, where somebody feels like, "Oh, I know what this is. I know how to deal with this. I can address that." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to you and I'm hearing that I versus you language. That's something that we try to be really mindful of is how much are we speaking from our perspective in our questions as opposed to really observing the client's thinking and the client using that you language. And I love the metaphor of like lifting the box. I was thinking through, I'm like, okay, what's a relatable metaphor for the work that we do? And somewhat similar where there's a like the table, you know, like everyone comes, we come to the table and you bring your bags, bring your baggage is welcome here. And let's examine like what's in the bag and what's
Mhm.
serving you and what's not serving you. And nothing is inherently good or bad, but
Mm.
what's useful for the goal that you've brought forth.
Mm. Yeah, I think that something that brings up for me is the role of the coach and then also the role of the client because there is responsibility. It's a partnership, right? We're there to like
Mhm.
help them lift the lid off the box, open the bag, whatever metaphor we're going with here. Um, but there is a responsibility on the client as well, right? Just to Jill's point, like we're not stepping in with our magic wand, although we might ask questions that use a magic wand in like theory, right? Um, so I'm curious what you guys think about what is the responsibility of the client in how we show up for them.
Um, I I love this question because this is something, so we all of us do this as coaches. We have the intro call with our clients before anything is charged, before anything is set up in terms of contracts. It's the getting to know you chemistry test, but also figuring out what do you need and how does this all work? conversation. And the thing I'm always both excited and terrified to tell people in that call is, you're the one doing the hard work here as the client. You have the responsibility to come with a topic and be willing to go there and be willing to have that conversation and be ready to be forward looking and think about solutions and think about that desired future state and the work that you're going to be doing to get there. I'm here as your partner. I'm here to help you. My role to serve you is to step into that place of thinking partner, question asker. But the client has that responsibility to want to dive in and do that work and go along for the ride and respond to the questions and allow new insight to come forward. And I love too that you brought up the idea of that magic wand, right? Like if there's this desire for us to come in with this magic wand. And I'm just going to throw this one over to Inyam because she knows what I'm talking about, because she has a beautiful way of describing this that I would love to have the world hear.
Thank you. Yeah, Jill and I were talking about this the other day, and I brought up this concept of a magic chisel. I know why we talk about the magic wand because it invites people to think about this best future, this solution to their problem. I think where the magic wand is a little bit of a disservice is that it doesn't acknowledge the work that we do. We have this preferred future, this solution to our problem, but it is going to take work on our part, whether that is energy, effort, time, behavior change. Sometimes it can mean going and learning a new skill. There's work that's involved in having kind of this fairy tale vision of what we want our future to be or the solution to our problems. And so I like the idea of a magic chisel. I think also to answer your question around what's the work of the client in partnering with us, I think the work of the client is to show up ready to work, being open, being honest in what they bring forth. I think, and I'll kind of use that to segue into our topic around how do we as coaches serve them. And we have a responsibility to create this environment, to create this space that allows them to show up and be honest and be transparent and be heard, to give them permission to be non-judgmental. There are all these different elements at play in creating this space for our client. Myself personally, I've said it, and I think there's probably discussion in the coaching community around what's the scope of a coach. But in my practice, I've said I give the client what they want. I let them lead. I let them take me there, but I'm going to give the client what they want. And so my coaching practice, if it calls for some consulting, then we might expand the scope of the engagement, whereas I'll bring in some complementary methods or complementary services to the coaching work. And I also think as coaches that there's accountability. Like we hold them accountable by the nature of having a conversation where they are verbally committing to the work that they're going to do from the beginning, all throughout the engagement. I do think that we as coaches have a responsibility to hold them accountable. Now, what that accountability looks like, that's a discussion around what the engagement looks like. Is it a text check-in? Is it a meeting to meeting accountability? Is it something more structured and formal?
Or is it even looser, right? Because it can be just the accountability of knowing that you have a coach and you have another appointment with a coach. And sometimes, some of the clients I work with, and I know for myself when I'm a coaching client, because I'm not just a coach, I access coaching. I feel this compulsion sounds like a strong word. But I do feel compelled. Like the power of coaching compels me to go forth and
Yeah.
actually do the thing I said I was
Do
going
the
to do. Because,
thing.
yeah, I put it out there in the world, but I do know that in 2 weeks, I'm going to go and sit in front of this person again. And my coach does not ask me to report back
Mm,
on things because I have not asked her to ask me that, right? And that's one of the beautiful things is like I have that choice as the client to say, okay, this
Mhm.
is what I want the accountability to be.
Yep.
But just in
mm,
my own head, that knowledge of like, I'm going to go sit in front of my coach and we're going to have a conversation. And it's going to be pretty obvious whether I did the thing or didn't do the thing, because the conversation's probably going to relate to the last conversation. You know, we've got an agreement, we've got a scope of work that we work on. So yeah, even in the absence of a coach texting you to say how is this going or asking or whatever agreement you've come up with, there still is that just very natural relationship based sense of accountability that can show up. Aisha, what about you? How does it show up in your engagements?
yeah, I think you both hit on, this nature of it being so malleable and being able to be fit to different people's needs. Accountability shows up for me very similarly to yours, I think. Your experience, Jill, in my coaching with my own coach. But there will be times where I can say, or I have said to my coach, I actually want to check in. I want to have done X, Y, and Z within three weeks time. And so I have a pretty fluid relationship with my own coach and similarly with the coaching clients I have. And so I think one of the things that I really value as a coach and as a client of a coach is having that open dialogue and having that relationship that's been established where there is trust so
Mhm.
that I know I can ask for what I need. And I can also, you know, go back and say, that's actually not what I need right now. And so I think part of what's showing up and serving a client is being able to build that relationship, being able to hold that authentic um, sense of self with someone so that there is trust there
Mm.
because it's not just accountability that we offer as coaches, right? It's reflection, it's not judgmental reflection, it's presence. And something else that I really want to pinpoint here is it's curiosity. It's the accountability paired with that curiosity about what does that accountability mean to you? Why is it so present? And are you needing it to be so present? What is it
Mhm.
doing for you? And I think that curiosity piece is huge and it pairs with everything else that we offer as a coach.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that link too because it allows us, even in situations where there isn't, like we have these sort of accountability structures, there's this capacity to serve the client with that, but also to look at it and say, oh, okay, well, whether it's us as the client or someone else, a client commits to, I'm going to do the following. This is how I'm going to go down this path. And then they come back and they say, yeah, it didn't work,
Mm,
or I didn't do it. And that matching curiosity with accountability, you get the difference between, well, why not? And, well, why
yeah.
not? You know, and and that ability to get curious about it and say, what about it didn't work? Because there could be so many different reasons, and it could be that it wasn't the right solution, it wasn't the right time, it didn't land the way it needed to land. Like there's so many possibilities within that, that allows the client then to dig a little deeper and find the more appropriate next step, right? Or the time that's right for that
Mm,
next step, whatever it ends up being, rather than to just say, okay, well that's it, or turn it into negative a negative response to the accountability.
yeah.
Yeah. And you're really
Right.
speaking to One of the greatest values in coaching, and I say this from the feedback that I've had across all of my clients, one of the most common feedback that I get is that they really value that ability to think out loud.
Mm.
There is something that happens between internal thoughts and externalizing them and actually speaking them out. It's like in our mind, they are seemingly sensible, coherent. They don't contradict anything.
Never.
And then think about how often you've had a thought that was just so brilliant, and then you go to speak it out, and you have to take a minute to put it together. And then sometimes, even after you've put it together, it takes someone to say, quoting my dear friend here, "Did you hear what you just said? Did you hear that?" And because we are coach-like, we do it in a way that does not, um, it doesn't issue harm to them,
Yeah.
but we're able to ask them that in a myriad of ways. Do you see the picture that you've painted? Do you hear the goal that you have versus the goal that or the action that you took? We're able to, we take these thoughts, we allow them to create objects and visuals with them that we can now examine in a way that just doesn't happen inside of our
Empty.
brains.
Yeah.
I think part of that gift too is that capacity to focus on one thing, right?
Yeah.
Because when we start, I think, at least for me, and maybe I'm just going to expose myself here as as neurodivergent, but that's fine. Because here we are. We've all met. But in our own internal thoughts, that capacity to take 17 different paths all at the same time and not really focus on one thing and one outcome and going in one direction at a time. It can be incredibly generative, right? We can come up with so much, and there's a lot of value in that. But I think one of the things that the coach does in that relationship is say, okay, let's really hone in. What's the one thing? What's the one direction you want to go in? And let's really dig at that piece so that, when you have that genius thought and you say it out loud, you can really notice it, and that coach can really highlight it for you, and you're staying in that lane and really giving yourself that time. But the coach is, by starting off the session by really getting clear about what we're talking about and really focusing on that, really allows the client to stay in that one lane and see all of the things that are around it, absolutely, and test those out. But exactly like you said, Inyam, like, hear what they say, see the picture that they've drawn, get a sense of what those objects are and really look at them and really examine them. Find out what the values, the beliefs, those limiting thoughts are that are stopping you from moving to action, or that are maybe informing the types of actions that you see as possible, maybe limiting those, right? That ability to just take that time and space and hold that for someone is so, I don't know, I'm obviously excited because I am going on 17 paths right now, even though I'm out loud. Anyways, that capacity to really dig in and hold dedicated time and space for thought it's rare in the way that we live our lives, right? And it, for me, does not happen in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, I don't know if you'll ever heard, but there's some people, I can't remember the clinical term for it, but there are people that hear music and associate like notes with color.
Synesthesia.
Thank you. Yeah, synesthesia. And it's like a new way of like being able to like sort through like what you're hearing. And so I kind of see it as having this space where you're able to kind of assign a different level of meaning to the thoughts you have, right? In this space with the coach, and be able to pass through it and just add that extra layer of, like in this example, like of color to what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and being able to analyze it in that different level so that you can come to those aha moments.
As you were talking and you're talking about there's is a one-to-one relationship and there's all of these complexities in that. Now, enter in a second person where you're doing team coaching or group coaching or, an entire team of people, an organization that has layers and different regions and hierarchies and different departments and there's all these, again, complexities. And what are some of the assumptions that are holding you back in working together? Everyone's got the same goal. You're all superstars individually, and yet you're operating in silos. You're not communicating well, um, duplicating work. You're feeling under resourced. All these different problems that come about in a group team dynamic. And I think it's our job as coaches to really be problem aware is the language that I would use, is being problem aware with our clients. But then going back to the magic chisel is how do we use the space and the relationship to empower them to go back and operate without us, essentially.
Yeah.
I love that language of problem aware because you can balance that. Like, yes, we're problem aware, we're solutions focused.
Mm.
Because coaching
Yep.
is all about that idea, take your magic chisel and start chipping away and doing the work and getting to that imagined ideal state of the future, right? We need to understand the problem to be able to shift out of it. But that differentiation between coaching and therapy, where we're really examining how did we get to the problem, what's influencing the problem, how do we really look at the problem in coaching. We need to know that, we need to understand it, but we really need to be moving into that forward space
Yep.
of that solution focus. So I really appreciate the way that you frame that as problem aware, to balance that with solution focused. Yeah. And that, whether it's one person, two people, 10, 30,
Yep.
hopefully not 30, maybe 30. I don't know.
Maybe.
It
It'll be
depends,
a fun
depends on the
session.
team, right?
Yeah.
We have that capacity to help move the needle and to hold that space for that good thought and that good work and that chiseling that's going to need to happen. We're not doing the chiseling. We're just offering the capacity to pick a chisel up,
Yeah.
and the space to understand what sculpture we're chiseling away to build. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah. When you said 30, you're like, not 30 people, hopefully. You made me think of something really when we talk about our relationship with our client, with our coachee. Part of what we work so hard to bring to the space is, we talk about like creating safety, et cetera, but it's not like we just walk in and turn the safety light switch on. If we're doing a team coaching, we don't just walk in and be like,
Wait,
I
you
know
don't
how
do
to
that?
facilitate. I know how to facilitate. I just show up and I know how to have presence and I know how to have a sense of the weight of the conversation and how to navigate that and how to, as they say, speak from the scar and not from the wound. How to be looking forward, but not, dwelling on what didn't work well in the past, maybe saying, how was I resourceful and being able to take that and apply that to what we want in the future. And so I'm just kind of throwing out some of these different things that we do. And what I want to acknowledge is that we don't just show up ready to do that, that we are doing ongoing development of ourselves. Sometimes it's coaching ourselves or, ourselves coaching with other coaches. It's learning other skill sets that are very much a part of what they all come together and they are what coaching is. And that is one way that we do serve our clients is through making sure that we are equipped for the work.
Absolutely. And that capacity to build trust and safety really comes from how are we showing up in the space? And what are we offering? What's on the table? And, going back to Aisha's question earlier about, the work that we expect our clients to do is they're partners in that, and especially in a group context or a team context, we need to have agreement of how we're going to be in that space and how we're going to hold it, because a one-to-one relationship, it's fairly easy. I shouldn't say easy, but
Mhm.
it's straightforward
Mhm.
to manage that dynamic and to help one individual feel safe. But when we're managing the needs of more folks, we all need to be active participants throughout the session to make sure that
Mhm.
we are creating the conditions where we can,
Mhm.
move forward and not be revisiting wounds, but we can be looking at those future states that we're working toward. Yeah. So a lot of really different ways that we're able to serve the client and bring that space to move forward, to move into solution and to create that future. I'm curious, my friends, if you have sort of final thoughts on how is it that a coach serves a client? How is it that they help them find their agency that we haven't already talked about?
Mm.
The word that comes to mind for me, oh my gosh, I shudder to think, Jill, you're going to be like, what? That was your word? But the word that came to mind for me is architect. And the reason there was like I know,
Well, why would
I
I
know.
judge architect?
I think because there is a huge emphasis on the partnership, and there is a
Ah,
huge emphasis on that, like, we're not like we're not in here, doing like plastic surgery of your life, right? Like that's not what's happening
mm,
here. Um, and so architect, I think, could sound a little bit like we're like putting all the pieces in place for you. But an architect in the sense that we understand the process of coaching and we understand the whether it's maybe the infrastructure that we need to have in place so that the process can do what the process does.
mm.
Um, and so I think that we are serving them by being architects of the conditions of the space, of the environment,
Mm.
bringing ourselves ready to partner with them, and then working through the coaching process with them.
Okay, no, my friend, I am not going to judge you for saying architect. First off, coaching, non-judgmental. Um,
I appreciate. Thank you. Living proof. Thank you.
I just embodying a coach mindset, one of the core competencies for all of the coaches who are listening today. But no, I think there is really something to that. Like we hold the process, they hold whatever the issue at hand is, and whether that is a problem to be solved, whether that is a how do I invite more joy, how do I have abundance, whatever the question at play is, I think our capacity to serve a client is really in creating that degree of invisibility of process and showing up absolutely as the coach and nothing but the coach. Um,
Mm.
so I'm not going to come into a coaching session as, Jill, the person who has held these types of jobs and these types of experiences.
Mhm.
Absolutely, my identities, all of them, all of the pieces that create who I am are going to show up with me, but I'm there to quiet them and to quiet my compulsion to say, please let me tell you how to solve your problem. Um, and to serve them by saying, no, you are the expert in your life. You are the
Mm.
one who is capable of solving any of the challenges or questions in front of you, whether it's overcoming negative, finding positive, whatever it is. I hold you 100% capable of that. And
Mhm.
let me offer you a framework to help you get there. That to me is that piece. So fully behind architect in that parameter of architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll just honestly echo what both of you had shared, in that we serve the client by putting the spotlight on the client and us being in the shadow, right?
Mhm.
We are not here to center our lived experience, our professional experience. We are really there to approach the engagement with the utmost curiosity and center that curiosity around the client in service of that client. And yeah, I think it's just taking ourselves out of the equation, but being able to allow for that process, to enable that process that you both were discussing, while shining that light on the client.
Beautifully said.
Oh my gosh.
So with that, I think we're ready to wrap this one up. And I just want to thank everybody for, well, first, my amazing co-hosts of this podcast for bringing the wisdom. If this is your first time at Coffee with Coaches, welcome. We hope you've enjoyed it. We're here to talk about what coaching really is, who it's really for, and why it really works. And so if you found today's episode interesting, valuable, we'd really encourage you to like and subscribe. We are on YouTube at Coffee with Coaches. Feel free to share our page or this episode with a friend that you think might be interested in coaching, whether they're interested in becoming a coach, whether they're interested in accessing coaching, or they just want to learn a little bit more about what this is all about. So please do spread the word about Coffee with Coaches. We're just getting going again on YouTube at Coffee with Coaches. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover or to explore that you haven't heard yet on the podcast, please do drop it into the comments on our page. We are watching for those, and we would love to hear what people are interested in. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Inyam. Thanks, Aisha. And thanks to all of you. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Coffee with Coaches is hosted by Aisha Hassan, Inyam Griggs, and Jill Shillabeer. Editing and production by Inyam Griggs. And that's Keith Herndon in the intro. Thanks for listening.